Oregon's biggest recruiting splash that could happen during the season would probably need Maryland to be really bad.
You are Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Oregon Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, it is that time once again for Locked On Ducks. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you all so much for making this your first listen or your first view of the day. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and your number one source to stay up to date with the Ducks. And the season, folks, is so phenomenally close. 11 days away. Next Saturday, we're going to have a brand new Oregon game to talk about. I'll get to previewing it and all that on next week's show. Or if you have questions now, hey, submit a mailbag is always open via YouTube comments, Twitter, or otherwise. Thoughts on the future of the coaching staff. Oregon basketball added a transfer that admittedly I should have gotten to last week. And it's just one of those things that slipped through the cracks. Wanted to address that. No trivia today, but Spencer's Scale of Agreement is back. I didn't get a trivia question, so no trivia question today. Keep sending them. Always available. So, Oregon's recruiting is looking really good for 2026. It has not been a perfect cycle. It's been way far from a perfect cycle. For those of you who maybe tune out during the season and then start to tune back in as the season gets close, I'll give you about a 30-second rundown. Oregon was going after the number one quarterback, the number one offensive tackle. They were in the final 2 or 3 for both of those guys and went 0 for 2 on Jared Curtis and Jackson Cantwell. But they wound up getting Emmanuel Iheanacho. They wound up getting Tank Jones, who are both 5-star prospects, Jet Washington as well. Their class is sitting inside the top 10, and things are looking pretty darn good. Now, Lanning and company have done a good job in the last couple of cycles of picking up some solidly high-profile names throughout the course of the season. And several of those guys are on Oregon's roster, of course, and will be impact players one day. Aiden Breland comes to mind. He was kind of the first one, I think, that I remember from the 2023 season, and I think Aiden Breland could have a pretty big role this year. But if you really want Oregon to make a splash, Maryland needs to be really bad this year. Now, they're probably starting a freshman or a redshirt or true freshman, a former blue chip quarterback prospect that they brought in. But Mike Locksley it's not his first year. I think he's in year 5 or 6 or so. Last year was not very good for the Terrapins. Of course, they came to Autzen Stadium and Oregon didn't even play that great of a game, got off to a slow start and had some really bad penalties in the secondary that kept drives alive for the Terrapins. Still won the game by 20-ish points. So, Maryland was not great last year. If they're not great again this year, they could move on from Mike Locksley. And then you would hear a lot about the name Zion Elee, who in the 24/7 composite rankings is the number 1 overall edge prospect and the number 1 overall player. Now, it is strange if you're hearing for the first time the number 1 player in the country is committed to Maryland. That's odd. It's not normal. I actually applaud the Terrapins for being in that position. Now, they have one significant advantage, and that's that Zion Elee is from the Baltimore, Maryland area. He attends St. Francis Academy, a school that Oregon's recruited players from several times over the last couple of years. Good program. Being from the area gave Maryland an advantage. Do they get Zion Elee if he's a California kid? Probably not. But hey, play the hand you're dealt. Geography is something that you either have to overcome or take advantage of. For Oregon, it's overcome. For Maryland, in this instance, it's take advantage of. The other thing that I've heard is that Maryland has seriously upped their commitment in the NIL space to try and be a legitimate player on the college football stage. And you know what? Kudos to them. You could think that that is not a worthwhile effort. It's moot. It's going to be fruitless and all that sort of stuff. I just watched Indiana go to the college football playoff. They've been a joke of a program for a while. We all know how important having NIL dollars is. They're, I believe, an Adidas school, or Under Armour maybe. They've gotten serious about it. Okay, good for them. If the head coach is removed from his position, Zion Elee's going. Oregon's not the only school that is going to call, but there was a point in time late last calendar year, 2024, where Oregon was viewed as one of, or maybe the favorite to get Zion Elee, and he winds up committing to Maryland. So, of all the recruiting splashes that Oregon could make during the season, that's the biggest potential one. I don't think that happens if Mike Locksley has some level of success and he and his staff end up sticking around. Locksley's not a horrible coach. Maryland is not the easiest job in the world. He probably needs to make a bowl game this year to stick around. And I won't rule out the possibility of Oregon flipping him if he winds up staying there, Mike Locksley, that is. But it's not something I really anticipate. He's been there since 2019. His Big Ten conference record is 16-40. He had a couple of 8-win seasons actually coming into last year, but they'd lost their quarterback Talia Tagovailoa and they went 4-8. I think if he misses a bowl game again this season, there's a solid chance, even though he's 3-0 in his career in bowl games, which for Maryland, not bad. He had gone 7 wins, 8 wins, 8 wins. If he goes 4 wins and then wins 3 or 4 games again this year, they could make a change. If they don't, it would be a lot tougher for Oregon to make that flip. Not impossible. But I don't know if, look, maybe there's a geographical, I don't think geographical is a word. Maybe there's a geographic component to Elee's recruitment. That is, I just want to stay close to home no matter who the coaching staff is. I want to go play for Maryland. That's been my dream school. Maybe that's the case. But just keep an eye on the Terrapins this year. If it starts going downhill and a change gets made, this is going to be a segment on the show. Because that is the biggest splash I think Oregon could make. I'm sure some of you will suggest someone like a Calvin Russell at Syracuse, borderline 5-star wide receiver. Yeah, I could see it. That staff isn't going anywhere, but that'd probably be a more likely flip with the coaching staff staying in place. So that's a name to follow, name to know. On the high-profile 5-star flip front, by the way, Oregon, of course, has to be prepared for the remote, what I think is the remote possibility of one of their 5-stars getting flipped. Because I've seen reports come out that schools are still going to try and recruit Tank Jones, the number 1 player in the state of Alabama. I know that Nacho, 5-star offensive tackle, is going to take visits throughout the year. I'm actually not that concerned about it. I'd say Spencer's scale of agreement for losing one or at least one of those guys, no higher than a 2. You can never rule it out. Crazier things have happened before. I think both those guys are pretty solid. I even though Nacho's the one that's going to take the visits throughout the year, I think he's more dialed into Oregon than Tank Jones is. And by the way, I don't think Tank Jones is going anywhere either. So names to watch. Schools are going to try. They're going to make their pitch. They're going to try to get him on campus and all that sort of stuff. But I think it's more likely that 5-star flip news during the year goes in Oregon's favor than goes against them. Do you agree? Disagree? Feel neutral? Don't care? Whatever? Let me know in the comments below. Hit me up on Twitter. All of that good stuff. The future of the coaching staff. Lanning and others too. First, this episode brought to you by our friends at Prize Picks, the daily fantasy platform that lets you turn your football predictions into real rewards. Preseason is already heating up. College football isn't far behind. Starts this Saturday. Whether you've got your eye on big-name quarterbacks or breakout running backs, Prize Picks makes it easy to get in the game. So if you're going into an NFL matchup and you think Joe Burrow is going to go bananas, you take him over. If you think Saquon Barkley is going to get held in check, you take him under. Whatever you're feeling, put your knowledge to the test. PrizePicks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. You want to check them out and make the football season even more exciting. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. Check them out with football season around the corner. You don't want to go anywhere else. PrizePicks, run your game. And if you're a golfer like me, you got to stay hydrated. Drip Drop's the way to do it. If you're trying to stay on top of your routine, whether that's workouts, long days on campus, or staying focused through back-to-back classes, hydration's where it all starts. And that is where Drip Drop comes in. Maybe you're a golfer like me. Hydration's important. I value it. And Drip Drop helps you along that journey. Drip Drop is doctor-developed and scientifically proven for fast hydration. It uses the perfect balance of sodium electrolytes and glucose to help your body quickly absorb fluids, delivering 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of a leading sports drink. That's a combination that's going to put you at your best. And when you're out there battling the heat, like I'm going to be in the state of Utah later this week, guess what? I'm going to have Drip Drop with me to make sure that I can stay as hydrated as I can. Right now, Drip Drop is offering Locked On listeners 20% off your first order. Just head to dripdrop.com, use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege. That's dripdrop.com, promo code LOCKEDONCollege for 20% off. Stock up now before the heat hits hard. Check them out at dripdrop.com. Let's talk about the coaching staff now that we've had our second segment set. So, Duck2081A sends this one in. And YouTube comments, Twitter, become a Locked On Ducks insider, get priority access and a bunch of other perks. That link in the description below for a free 14-day trial. Send me all your questions. The season is very close. What questions are on your mind? I want to know. I want to hear from you guys. So, Duck2081A sends in a take for Spencer's scale of agreement. Or one that I'm turning into it anyway. Does Dan Lanning get over 200 wins at Oregon? Okay. Probably not. It would be super duper cool if he did. Because that means he would not just stay at Oregon for a long time. He would win at a level that makes him one of the greatest college football coaches probably of all time. So the reason I know that is, do you know how many games Nick Saban won in his career at Alabama? 201. Well, that's a lot. He's been a coach at 3 different places. Michigan State. He was actually only okay at Michigan State. LSU, he did very well, won a national championship. Alabama, we know, the greatest dynasty in the history of the sport. In total, in those spots, he spent 5 years at LSU, 5 years at Michigan State, and was at Alabama from 2007 to 2023. So 17 years there with the Crimson Tide. Quick math tells me that that's 27 years as a head coach, plus 1 year at Toledo, so 28. He won 292 games all time. But let's not presume that Lanning's going to be here for that'd be that would be really wild. Really wild. So let's just take Dan Lanning and think about what it would take for him to get to 200 wins, which Nick Saban just barely eclipsed at Alabama. From 2008 until 2023, Alabama never won fewer than 10 games. They actually only won 10 games once in 2010. They won 11 or more every other year, which is insane, but greatest of all time at Alabama. Lanning has shown he hasn't won fewer than 10 games in a year. Dan Lanning is, we all know, Lanning is very good. He's got 35 wins in his first 3 years. Let me do some quick math in real time, just to make sure my numbers are all solid here. If he's averaging about 12 wins per year, or 11.6, for him to get to 200, he would have to stay with the Ducks at the same rate of accumulating wins for over 17 seasons. It's 17.2. We'll round down, say maybe has some great years in there. And, when you're expanding the playoff at the rate the Big Ten or SEC might want to, mostly the Big Ten. I don't even want to sound off on that today. It's so ridiculous. But a 17-year run, I mean, that'd be great. And it's not like he would get aged out to where he's going to retire. I mean, some coaches get burned out and decide, no, this isn't for me anymore. I want to spend more time with my family. I don't know. Dan Lanning's kids are in middle school, so unless he wants to coach for like 5 more years and then see them through to the end of high school, might not even be that long, quite frankly. So, and I haven't heard anything to that respect. So, does Dan Lanning get over 200 wins? I'm going to say probably not. I think a better number would have been 150. That would be more than Mike Bellotti had. Mike Bellotti, who had, of course, a phenomenal run at Oregon as the head coach from 1995 to 2008, won 137 games. Could Dan Lanning get to 150? If he stays at Oregon long enough, yes. I mean, Oregon should be a 10-plus game winner basically every year. Maybe every now and then you fluctuate down. Injuries happen or whiff on a quarterback prospect. I don't know. There are only about 17 different things that could go wrong there. Get a brutal schedule. 200 wins. I'm gonna put that at a 1.5. And I love Lanning. Don't get me wrong. Holding him to go be Nick Saban. 2. I'll give that a 2 at 200. But 150. That'd probably be more like a 7.5. But the longevity and sustained success that is required to get to that level, that's a lot. That is a lot. Alaskan Girl Dad says, if you could only retain one, who are you keeping? Tosh Lupoi or Chris Hampton? If I can only retain one, I want to make it clear I'm not calling for either of their jobs after last season just because they had a bad day in the Rose Bowl and need to get better against the best teams in the country. I think they can. I've seen coaches do it before. I don't think I'm crazy for saying Chris Hampton. Here's why. When I think a good number of Oregon fans that think about this stuff in detail, many of you out there, think about Tosh Lupoi, you think, he's a phenomenal recruiter. That's where my mind goes to first. I think he gets underrated for the defenses that he coordinates and calls plays for and what they have done on the field over the last several years. They have gotten better each year that he's been in charge. They continue to recruit at a high level. And yeah, there is still improvement warranted. Do I think he's such a brilliant schematic guy that I don't think you could possibly upgrade there? I don't. Because I watch a lot of other defensive coordinators across the country come in with talent that's already there and make bigger improvements more quickly because they're just better with the scheme and making the right play calls. So Hampton was a defensive coordinator at Tulane. He did quite well. I'd probably lean towards Hampton because you jump towards, you don't want to lose Tosh Lupoi's recruiting. Well, Chris Hampton was just the 24/7 Sports Recruiter of the Year. So, do I know that he can recruit defensive linemen like Tosh Lupoi can? I do not. But I know he can recruit defensive backs better than anybody has in the history of Oregon football. So, this is a tougher call for me than I think it is for a lot of Oregon fans out there. Not a lot, but certainly a segment who I interact with regularly, and I understand why they're in that position of, the social post I had the other day of asking how much confidence people have in Tosh Lupoi is like one of the most engaged with social posts on Twitter I've had all off season. And it's a topic clearly that got some Oregon fans hot and bothered, and people have strong opinions about, the performance he's had over the last several years. We'll get another data point this year, but yeah, by a smaller margin than most, I will lean towards Chris Hampton because he did some really good things at Tulane. I think he's done great things since coming to Oregon. And yeah, I think he will be a Power 4 defensive coordinator one day. He's already gotten some interest and buzz because people know how good he is. But do I think that Tosh is on the hot seat this year? No. I do not. So, well, that was a lot. That was a good couple of coaching questions right there. I like those. A take about something unexpected, and I think I found the answer to a trivia question, or did I? First, this episode brought to you by OpenPhone. If you're running a business, every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time you needed a service. If the first person didn't answer, did you wait? Probably not. You moved on. That's why you need OpenPhone, so you never miss an opportunity to connect with your customers. OpenPhone is the #1 business phone system designed to streamline and scale your customer communications. Do you juggle 2 phones just to keep business and personal calls separate? OpenPhone solved that instantly. Your whole team can share one number and respond to customers like a shared inbox. No more who's handling this, who's handling that. You're going to make it simpler with OpenPhone. See why over 60,000 businesses trust OpenPhone. They're offering Locked On listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/lockedoncollege. That's openphone.com/lockedoncollege. They'll even port over your existing numbers for free. OpenPhone. No missed calls, no missed customers. Check them out at openphone.com/lockedoncollege. Trivia, of course, ends every show, and I think what I'm going to do during the season is we're going to make it Tuesday trivia. Maybe it'll be there every day during a bye week. We'll see. But I was looking it up. So, person who sent me the question, you know who you are. I think the answer was, or is, Chip Kelly for who has the highest win percentage. I suppose the qualifier of it's not who you think it is was, I would think it's Lanning. I thought it was Chip. Anyway, but no trivia to wrap today's show. Anyway, so Duck of the Desert sent this one in because I didn't get a question today. That's all right. I got plenty of other stuff to talk about, but I do love the trivia clues, so keep them coming. Duck of the Desert. Can the Ducks do what is not expected? Actually, it's a very good question. I believe, and you're going to think this is crazy. Spoiler alert, I do. The Ducks are going 12-0. Okay. 10 of those wins will be by over 21 points. Oh my goodness. They will beat Penn State by 18. Wow. They will beat Washington by 17. How are you beating Penn State by more points than Washington? Penn State's a much better team. And they will go to Lucas Field to play Ohio State, who will also be 12-0. That's in the Big Ten championship game. The Ducks will win that game by 13. You can take that to the bank. Okay. I respect the confidence, man. I do. I really do. I really do. Maybe you just sent this one in for entertainment purposes, to see what my reaction would be, to see what other people's reactions would be. Man, also, here's what I find most interesting about this hypothetical scenario. 10 wins will be by over 21 points. Oh, I see. I see what you're saying. For a second, I thought it was 10 by over 21 points, but 2 by single digits. Yeah, okay, I see. I mean, your characterization of Washington being the toughest game and Penn State being the second toughest is incorrect. Penn State is first. Second toughest game is either Iowa or Washington. I think it's Washington because of the rivalry factor. Yeah, if Oregon beats Penn State by 18 points, I'll start getting kind of nervous again, frankly, because I'll be back in. I will switch from hope they're a national title contender to expect them to be a national title contender. If they go to Penn State and win by 18 points, this channel would be on fire. I would probably force Zach Sako of Locked On Nittany Lions, who I consider a friend and an esteemed colleague here at the network. I'd probably force him to come on here and do a crossover show just so we could have some fun. By we, I mean you and me, not him. But he's a good sport. I'm sure he'd be up for it. Actually, I don't know. I don't know if I would be up for that. So, yeah, this is beating Washington by 17 is far more likely than beating Penn State by double digits. there's an interesting thought. Is it more likely, drop your thoughts in the comments below, more likely that Oregon beats Penn State or beats Washington by 17 or more? That's a tough one. That is a tough one. You'll have a battle of really talented young quarterbacks in that rivalry week game up in Seattle. Damon Williams for Washington and Dante Moore in all likelihood for Oregon. There hasn't been an official starting quarterback named. Don't expect to hear that from Dan Lanning. It's just not the way that he rolls. But I saw Dante Moore taking a fair share of snaps, it seemed, with what looked like first-team guys in the last episode of Under Construction. So, I think we know. It's going to be Dante Moore. But yeah, so Ducks 12-0, 10 wins by over 21, but beating Iowa by over 21 points on the road, beating Indiana and USC by over 21 points. Boy, that's a 1. That's a 1. That is a 1 on Spencer's scale of agreement. That might have to be even a 0.5. Like that would, the level of dominance that you're predicting there, man, I would love for you to be right. That'd be a fun time. Fun time. But yeah, I got to keep that one a little bit low. So I'll get to the trivia note in a sec. Oregon basketball, I know their season is further away, but I forgot to throw this in last week on the show. They added another big man, which I got to tell you I was a little surprised about. But suddenly their front court depth, because of 2 international big men additions, is looking really good. So they've brought in 6'9", 6'10" Turkish forward Ife Vatan, and he will be a part of this year's team. Oregon has now filled its entire scholarship allotment. This year playing over in Turkey, I'm not even going to try to pronounce for Turkey's Galatasaray in the Basketball Champions League and Under-19 League. About 17 points, 6.5 boards, 61% from the field, just under 34% from 3. So maybe a Nate Biddle-ish type. But suddenly Oregon with Hige Demir, who they added in the portal, has got like legit front court depth. It's KJ Evans, it's Nate Biddle, it's also Sean Stewart, and then it's the 2 international bigs. We might see a lot of twin tower lineups this year. It's hard to project how European guys are going to translate over to the United States, but yeah, Oregon's now at 13 scholarship players. This is going to be a big team. There's going to be a lot of size on the court this year, and I am excited. I'm excited for the team. But and by the way, Vatan and Demir both played in Turkey recently. So again, those guys can often be really productive over there, come to the United States, just kind of be guys. But they got 6 bigs, because they added Sean Stewart's brother too. They got a lot of guys, a lot of guys over there. So on my research, by the way, on the trivia question, the all-time winningest coach and win percentage for the Ducks, Chip Kelly is at like 86.5%, and Dan Lanning is like 86.3%. I got to learn a lesson there. That's got to be just go with the gut. I went with Bellotti, who's not in that sort of range. So win percentage, I believe, so unless I'm missing the information, the answer is Chip Kelly, where if you listen to the show yesterday, that's where my mind went. And then I was like, oh no, let's back off of that. Always go with your gut. Always go with your gut. Go with your gut and send me your trivia clues. Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and go Ducks.